This video is motivating, Martin, isn't it?
We put on the disco shoes, Paul.
Yeah, definitely. But it's so good to be with you again in this
Absolutely. No, good to see you again for sure.
second episode, as our guests are just joining in a few minutes. And this will be exciting to host Caruana here today. And we are just talking out loud how the world is starting so hectic and crazy lately, right, Martin?
Yeah, there's so many moving parts going on around the world at the moment, in all parts of the world. It's between COVID, the waves of COVID that are coming and going, the waves of protests that are coming and going with COVID, the political, the economic. There's so many things happening. It's I think we live in challenging times.
Really challenging times. But let's bring Caruana to the studio. She's now ready with us. Hey, Caruana.
There we go.
Good morning to you.
Yeah, good morning, Karuana. Good to see you. How are you?
It's great that we are having guests from the Pacific time zone. I'm normally not used to being in the 12 hours difference time zones in the same meeting, but it happens sometimes.
You're getting us okay on audio, Caruana?
Yes, I sure am.
Fantastic.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Here we go. Backup machine to the rescue.
But yes, so welcome everybody. It's really great to be with all of you here today. We have a number of participants following us on LinkedIn and registering for this show. And of course, this show we know will be watched later on by many of you that are not able to join us live today, right now. And especially because we are not using our regular times here in the European time zone. We are using 8:30 a.m. Pacific Daylight Time. And thank you so much, Karuana, for being here with us.
Happy to be here with you. Yes, thank you. And thank you for accommodating me coming to you from Seattle, Washington, or just north of Seattle, actually, a place called Snohomish.
What's your time? It's early morning for you, Karuana, is it?
It is. It's 8:30 in the morning,
Okay.
our time over here.
Yeah.
Listen, Karuana, I was thinking about you sharing something about yourself that you normally do not share with the participants in this kind of interviews. I guess that our participants will love to know a little bit more about Karuana, the person.
Oh, that's wonderful. Well, Caruana, the person. When I'm not working, I love to cook. And I find it's not just because I like to cook, it's because I love for me, cooking is like a meditation. When I'm trying to put something together, I can't really think about work or teams or all the things that I do for my family and on my to-do list. And this weekend, I made a brand new triple berry cheesecake recipe. It was an experiment, and it turned out very good, so my family said. So that's definitely something I like to do in my free time. Quite a bit. So it's enjoyable.
That's amazing. But listen, Caruana, talking about experimenting, and knowing that you work on the engineering group of teams, is this something that you as a manager also need to do on your day-to-day work, this kind of experimentation and check, wow, how's everything
Oh,
is
absolutely.
progressing?
Absolutely. That's how we weren't any different when the pandemic started. We didn't know how to do any of this. And then we had the added, component of having to be at such high operational efficiency because everyone was depending on us. And so there's a lot of experimentation that's gone on. But for me, the most experimentation has been around keeping my team's morale up, right? So I'm the creator of the people first strategy that we use across Microsoft 365 because I really feel like the features are wonderful and I love technology. But if your people are burnt out, if they don't feel engaged, if they are super stressed and distracted by other things, with or without a pandemic, frankly, you're not going to have that talent that you're investing in bring the most to your organization. So We tried a lot of different things, like, is it better to end a meeting 5 minutes early or start it 5 minutes late? Where will people find all of the assets for that meeting? Like helping to design that before, during, and after meeting experience. Just things like, okay, what works for morale hour online? Like we used to all just go to a happy hour together and stand around and chit chat. But how do you do that? What's bingo like online? So every month there's something new we're experimenting with. I think we found a few good things for sure, which happy to share. But they're all now in our hybrid work guide, right? Everything you've seen about best practices has come from all of us at Microsoft experimenting and just trying to figure out this a little bit ahead of time so that we could share it with others and learn from others as well.
So what are there are there a top three? Are there a top 2 or 3 things that you've discovered from that experimentation?
Yes, absolutely. I am just so very adamant about no meeting Fridays. And you can pick whatever day works for you, but no meeting Fridays are absolutely essential to my team being able to regroup. And some teams even find no camera Wednesdays really helpful because being on camera all the time can be very stressful for some people.
Yeah.
It's part of my job. So I'm used to it, right? But even for me, I love that day where I don't have to turn on my camera and I know that I don't have to turn on my camera. And so, it's very important to be able to do that, right? And so I feel like it's really important to do that. That also starting the meetings 5 minutes late, because a lot of people won't respect a meeting ending early, right? But if you don't start it until 5 minutes late for a 30-minute meeting or 10 minutes late for an hour meeting, then you really are giving people a break between their meetings, which I really feel like is absolutely necessary to try to combat meeting fatigue and all of those things that can happen. So those are the 3 things. Make sure you have a no meeting day that is assigned. As a leader too, you have to really lean in and not book things on that day. And you have to remind your colleagues not to book things on that day. Right? If somebody puts a meeting on my schedule on Friday, I send them a little note and I said, we really try to honor no meeting Fridays in my team. And so, can we find another day for this? 9 times out of 10, there's plenty of other days or times for that meeting. I have rare exceptions for my CVP or whatever, but it's very rare. Even he does it. Everyone tries to really respect that.
Yeah. Do you find your productivity within your team spikes up during that day, on that no meetings day?
Well, I have a pretty high performing team. I try to just leave them alone on that day. So I'm not really monitoring their productivity on the day that they just need time to stare at the ceiling and get creative. Right. I'm not that kind of manager. I do demand a lot from my team Monday through Thursday, and they deliver a lot on our behalf and on behalf of literally the world. So I don't have to really worry about that too much. I feel like more important than productivity, what we should talk about more is employee wellness and health and engagement, and them really feeling like I care about them. That is what really creates a high performing team. It's that sense of loyalty. I feel like my team would walk through fire for me at this point. And they actually have. 2.5 years, almost 3 years now into this pandemic, we've been through things I never thought I'd be through with a team. And it was very, very intense, especially for the first, I'll call it 8 months. Was very, very intense, like I've never been through in my entire career. So, their productivity is just fine.
Yeah, you said you use a really interesting word there at the start, where you said regenerate, which actually I don't think, Paul, correct me if I'm wrong, but in all of the people we've interviewed and had a chat with, we've never touched on that particular point, so I'm really curious about your take on that. Creating time and space for people to regenerate.
Yes. Well, it goes back to if I wasn't a technologist, and since I didn't make it as a dancer, which is another thing that I really wanted to do when I was young, I would probably be a neuropsychologist. I'm fascinated by the functions of the brain, and I've always done a lot of reading on the side about this. Now there's actually a use for all of that, what I thought was random knowledge, now that I'm here in this job. And the truth is, the brain needs time to regenerate from
Yeah.
intense times of mental activity. That is how you're going to avoid meeting fatigue and the actual, difficulty your brain has continuing to operate at a certain level. There's a lot of great research on this that we have published on We Labs, on our lab, our research channel that you can find in my adoption newsletter. But the bottom line is, when you think too much for too long, you get tired and you don't do good work, right? Because you're literally mentally fatigued. That is compounded by being on video and on video meetings and having to interact with this digital mode for long hours at a time. So that's why I think it's very important to, in the actual day, have those literal breaks between meetings, but also to really have that time to pull back and process what you did that week,
What's going on?
right?
Yeah.
Have that opportunity to really think about it. I did a couple videos on Coffee in the Cloud just recently, and the one I did in December was about resting, relaxing, and really reviewing what had happened to you in this last year, and trying to take back a little bit of a semblance of control in terms of setting your goals for this year and being in the present moment. Right. These are the kinds of things that lead to innovations. You don't get innovations from exhausted workers. And your talent is your competitive differentiation. It's not your technology, it's not your product, it's your people, right? That will really lead you through a difficult time as a business. And so, I think it's really important to have that regeneration time from a neural standpoint, from a full body human standpoint. If you're going to talk about wellness, as Microsoft does, then you have to, what I call, operationalize self-care. You have to build it actually into the way you do business. Right? Because talking about it and having new tools to measure it and all of these things is great. But if you're not actually building these self-care processes into your business, then you're not actually invested in the health and wellness of your employees. Microsoft did this multiple times by giving us 5 extra wellness days off during the pandemic, because Microsoft realized the difficulties that every single employee was trying to navigate, especially those with children, when trying to homeschool and be productive and all of that. So they gave us this extra time off. I used it because I care for my elderly family members. And so I don't have kids, but I deal with that. Everyone has something that they're dealing with, no matter what your age. And so those wellness days are really important. So I think, from a business perspective, from a leadership perspective, you have to really think about how are you encouraging and also modeling that for your employees.
Absolutely, yeah.
Because, one of the reasons that I do this stuff, people first, and, the self-care and taking the breaks and turning off my camera, is because I need to model that behavior for other people. Also, if I'm not held accountable to modeling it for other people, I might not do it for myself. Right? I might not. I'm a very driven person, and I don't always take care of myself very well. And so I really have to do it so that my team sees it's okay to do it, so that they'll do it because I really care about them. Right? So
Absolutely.
that's kind of the way we ended up here.
Do you think that has intensified over the last 2 years as we've moved to so much online interaction as opposed to pre-pandemic, when a lot of the emphasis was on face-to-face interaction?
Yes, I do, definitely. I think it also uncovered something that already existed. And again, I'm speaking from my own experience, so your audience's experience might be different. But, Microsoft has a very intense culture. Microsoft Teams is very intense on top of that. It was always very driven. It was always very back to back. It was always very, high energy. And I feel like we just accepted it as the way that it needed to be when you're bringing a new product to market. Working inside Teams, when it was first created, I wasn't one of the original founders, but I came as right before preview. So I've been there quite a while now. And, it felt like you were on the inside of a sun. It was just like a startup inside Microsoft. It was one of the most, rewarding career experiences I've ever had, but it led to a very intense culture. So I think that it uncovered the fact that we needed some rest and recuperation time anyway, and that was exacerbated by the pandemic and being online all the time.
Wow, yeah, that's really interesting. And we're now in this I think, and this was the subject of our previous conversation last month with Lieven Berthier from Barco, and hopefully Lieven is going to be able to join us in a little while to contribute as well. But the whole, we're in this possible twilight zone at the moment of hybrid existence. Are we going to be more online, less online, and how are we going to balance the physical versus the remote interface? What's your sense of how that's likely to play out into the future in terms of that concept of operationalizing your regeneration?
Well, I think, excuse me, I think that we're seeing several elements of that right now. People are evaluating where they want to work. They want more flexibility in their schedules. Now that I'm home with my dogs and can run over and pick up my mom's prescription and drop it off and then come back to work because I'm in a, 2-mile radius, I don't really want to give that up. And I think many people are thinking about that. And so the idea that we have to make sure that meetings are inclusive is something that drives us, certainly in Microsoft Teams, but broadly across Microsoft. But that's going to take us changing our behavior one more time, right? Remembering to make every meeting a Teams meeting, because you may have people in person, you may have people online. And even if you're in the conference room joining the meeting, so you can participate in chat and see what's happening, so that you have one meeting, not two. I've been in meetings where there were certain people online and there were other people in the room, and it was as if I was in a different meeting from the folks who were actually, participating in the room. And so we have to make sure that that's one of those settings, policy settings, that people embrace. Every meeting is a Teams meeting. But I think that the desire to have flexibility is going to remain. I do think people want their children to go back to physical school, and I think there's some research that supports that in-person learning for our kids is very important. But I also support teacher safety, and I support teachers in general. I think they're the most important and yet underrated people on the planet. And so I feel like it's really important that we think about the quality of education that everyone is getting. But parents need that structure. I think that this situation really showed us the importance of schools and physical education, even beyond the curriculum, right? In terms of schools being a part of the culture, a part of your workday, a part of the way you run your day, dropping your kids off and picking them up for after school activities. And so I do think we're going to see, obviously we've got a lot of in-person learning going on in the States now. It is different phases around the country and around the world, but more of that is going to happen. And that frees up the parents, the employees, to, again, think about what they're doing with the quality of their employment. If you're not, I think that people have realized that if you're not valued where you are, right, the great reset, the great resignation, whatever you want to call it, people are changing jobs at unprecedented rates, and they're changing their lives at unprecedented rates because it's been proven now. I can be effective wherever I am at this point, even on the subtle levels of leadership or interacting with other leaders or being chosen for special things that you might think you had to be on Redmond campus to be chosen for. It's been proven that that's not the case anymore. So cultures and companies have changed, but I think we're going to keep learning. I'd encourage leaders and peoples out there to really talk to your team about what works for folks. Think about it yourself too. What's really good for your life? What is really going to make you feel as if you are investing in yourself and your family? That's automatically going to get you in a better place, professionally.
Yeah, just one thing that has really struck me about that, the Great Resignation. It's a phenomenon that's very visible because it's in the marketplace and it's quantifiable and we can see it. But what I find fascinating is it transcends all cultures, all nationalities.
That's right.
And
Every level.
It's happening virtually in every country. And it really then speaks to, so the driver is not a particular company, particular organizations, particular national cultures. It seems to be, it's about a human need.
Exactly.
That has to be met. And if it's not met, people are just going to vote with their feet.
Well, and I think you just said something so important. Sometimes in our professional careers, we put our human needs second. That time is over. That time is done. That's why when you ask me about the productivity of my team, I'm literally never thinking about that. I
Yeah.
am only thinking about their well being. I'm thinking about clarity, providing clarity, modeling good behavior, being respectful, making it a place they want to work, making sure that they feel like they have career development opportunities, training them in new processes and procedures. I have been in this business 30 years and I have some junior folks on my team. Turns out I have some stuff to teach them, right? That they actually really want to learn. And so I've really spent some time thinking about what can I contribute? What am I actually leaving, behind me in this job that I have and with the people that I interact with every day? Because they're not going to remember the projects we worked on. They're going to
Yeah.
remember how I made them feel. Right.
That's right.
And so really leaning into that and allowing my leadership style to evolve. No one would say that I'm a wallflower or very mellow when it comes to getting stuff done. I have a little bit of reputation in Microsoft about getting stuff done, right? But
Yeah.
it's important to get things done together. And so I really feel like if you deserve to work someplace where somebody sees you, where somebody honors your talent, where somebody actually asks you how you are and then stops talking and waits for an answer. It's amazing to me how many managers don't do that. They come into one-on-one and they say, "Hey, how are you? Let's go ahead and hop into blah, 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 blah." Right? No one's listening. And if you're not listening, you're going to miss the goodbyes from your employees as they exit your company. So my active listening skills are way more important than my advanced presentation skills. I use those a lot and people see me and they see me talking a lot. But I really, really try inside Microsoft with my team, with my business partners in the company to listen more than I talk. And that's a challenge for someone like me. But it is absolutely the most important thing I can do every day is listen to the people around me. And so it's really these leadership skills that have helped me navigate through this and continue to evolve my job. My job is not at all the same as it was before the pandemic, in positive ways, actually. And so because my bosses were listening to me, right? And I do feel seen and I do feel heard. So, I just think that people sometimes over index on the technology. But the differentiating factor right now is how you treat your people. And that's really going to allow you then to say, okay, what do they actually need? Let's do some feedback. Let's do some surveys. Let's actually talk to folks, do some round tables. That's another form of experimentation is change the way you're listening to your employees so that you can then prioritize the never ending backlog of technology solution modernization that most companies have. I have a never ending list of things that I want to do. But what I need to understand is what's most important and what's most impactful for my business and for my people. And by listening to them, by using feedback, right? This is part of the new people first strategy. Really, feedback is the first pillar that helps you identify your opportunities for change and transformation and allows you to set a strategy for going forward that is more inclusive of the needs of your customers, your employees, and yourself. So there's a framework now that we have for this, and I've been talking about it quite a bit because I feel like people are needing to change things up and they don't quite know what to do yet.
Are some of those principles are they going to be reflected in the technology, do you think? Are they going to become an integral part of how the technology is used, configured,
Oh, yes,
deployed?
absolutely. Well,
Yeah.
at Microsoft, of course, it already is. We have a feedback system in Microsoft Office and Microsoft Teams across the Microsoft ecosystem. And every time you hit, send feedback, it goes directly to Microsoft. Now, your administrator can turn that off if they don't want that to happen. Maybe they want to capture it on their own. But certainly it does. So we have a very robust feedback pipeline that already exists. And in Microsoft Teams, you can see it every day. The large gallery is a great example, but there are many examples of things in core collaboration and the meeting experience that's come directly from the feedback of our customers. So that our product has been shaped by this feedback, by the situation, and by the changing needs of the humans. And you can see it in Dynamics 365. They have a return to work solution that is focused on helping facility managers and IT professionals and others manage their staff coming back into their organizations. So yes, I think you need to have a partner in your technology footprint that actually will recognize those needs and help you get there. And there's a whole Microsoft partner ecosystem that has even more solutions that have been doing this. So yes, I do think it's going to continue to be shown in the technology footprint, but the technology footprint, of course, is in service of the needs of your employees and your customers. Pretty much in that order, by the way.
Yeah.
People always talk about the customer experience, and I appreciate that. But your employees can't give a good customer experience if their experience isn't good. That's why I put employees first, and then customers and leadership, in that order.
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting philosophy because I've come across that on many occasions at this stage. The not conflict, but different perspectives where some argue the customer is always right, and others will argue and say, well, actually, no.
Have you seen some of the videos online lately? I don't think the customer's always right anymore.
Okay.
I think that was true in 1995. I don't think that's true today. And
Absolutely.
again, it's all about what is your competitive differentiation, your talent, your people in your organization. You can have the same widget as the guy down the street, but if your people are more, better at selling that widget because they have better tools, because you've listened to them, because they feel more enthusiastic about the company, right?
Yeah,
then you're going to succeed better. No one's ever doubted my passion for Microsoft, and it does bleed into the work that I do. People can see that I love this company. It's not just about teams. It's about the fact that I feel like I work for the good guys. I feel like we're really trying to move the world forward in a trusted way and not steal all your data in the process. And so that gives me extra energy, right? And when they invest in me and send me to all this training and give me an extra bonus for my COVID work and all this other stuff, and basically just come to my meetings and say thank you, that changes the way I work for them.
Yeah,
right? I walk through the
absolutely.
fire for Microsoft because they've already done that for me.
Absolutely. Okay, so let's try to bring in our guest from our first episode and try to make the conversation flowing through the third episode. I'm going to announce in a minute our guest for episode 3. But right now we have patiently with us from the start, Levin Berthier. And Levin, it's good to have you here too.
See you again, Levin.
And since the last episode, and I am sure you're taking here some great notes for this great conversation, and you have some questions also for Karuana. So by all means.
All right. Well, thank you very much for the invitation, Paul and Martin. A pleasure to meet you, Karuana. So
nice to see you.
We are on different sides of the ocean, so it's morning for you. It's late in the evening for me. But I've been carefully listening to what you said. So the first thing I realize now is my opening question should be, how are you doing today?
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. That's wonderful. And yes, that should be. You have been listening. See, you just proved. So that's a communication loop. I said some stuff. You listened to me. You did something different, and you actually listened to what I said. I'm very well, but thank you for asking.
Good. No, but I mean, it's from my role working for a company like Barco, we are pretty much into technology. So we are talking day in, day out about meeting rooms, meeting technology, all that kind of stuff. But it's really fantastic to see you sort of holding up this mirror. Hey, you have technology on the one hand, and I would typically call that an enabler for better meetings. But at the same time, next to technology, it's about engagement. It's about people. So, I mean, the plea you made was fantastic. So a lot of good insights there. Thank you very much for that.
You're welcome.
Can I ask you some questions?
Oh, yes, please do.
Okay. So there's two I prepared actually for today. And the first one is I came across one of the Microsoft posts, and it stated 66% of business decision makers are now thinking about how to redesign their physical spaces, sorry about that, to better accommodate for hybrid work. So I'm just wondering, what are the must-haves according to you, in your experience? What would you put forward to better equip our physical spaces for hybrid?
I think it's really important to realize that the traditional kind of U-shaped, square conference room in the middle and everybody's around it because it's designed to be looking across the table at each other and the content on the wall was kind of secondary, that doesn't work anymore. If you see some of the content that we've released about the new front row experience, really having people facing the screen, having the participants more at that eye level and larger, there's a lot of innovation that's coming from Microsoft Teams around this. It's also about new devices, like devices that have cameras that can follow the presenter using AI, that have a camera for the audience as well as the presenter, and then being able to have different meeting layouts on those displays in that room to show the video of the people who are also participating digitally. So I think we have to think about the fact that these blended meetings need better interaction models. And there's so much research going on inside Microsoft around it. I find it really exciting. You can see that I have a Surface Hub behind me here. These devices continue to evolve, as well as those by our third-party partners, our OEM manufacturers. They're really doing some amazing things. And then Teams is recognizing those devices and laying out the meeting experience differently. So I think that people should also be thinking about, what is the ratio? How many of the people who were working from home during the pandemic are actually coming back into that physical space? Because then you can identify some of these meeting rooms to transform with the new technology. I realize it's a capital investment, but you will get it back in the way that people feel about your company and the investment in the talent and talent retention and in productivity.
Yeah, that's that. Go ahead, Martin. Sorry.
No, go ahead. Yeah, I was just saying, yeah, that makes total sense to me. Yeah, I got it.
You try to make data-driven decisions, right? And that's why the Dynamics 365 return to work solution or others that other partners have created and people have created is important, because you have to have that flexible work policy laid out clearly so your employees understand it. Do they have options? Can they work 50% from home? What does that look like for them? Are there tax implications? In the States, if you move, for instance, and you're no longer in Redmond, then that has tax implications. You have to navigate that first in terms of who is coming back to your facility. I would warn against people demanding everyone come back. I think that's a really bad idea. I think we're seeing that play out across the business now, that people who have not realized that this flexibility is here to stay are losing employees left and right. And so having a flexible work policy is number one. And then that will give you the data you need to be able to evolve your meeting room and your facilities investment to create some of these new experiences. And again, get feedback from your employees. What do they need, right? Maybe they want to interact with customers differently. Right. And so you have to think about, how has your customer relationship changed as well?
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the data points I also came across is like 4 out of 10 companies don't have this kind of hybrid working policy today, which is surprising more than 2 years into the pandemic. So yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I would ask them why not. I'm always asking people why not. I mean, I'll send you a copy of ours. It's pretty straightforward. Pick. Microsoft employees get to pick. I mean, there are certain jobs that you are required to be in a facility. Obviously, if you work at a data center or something, but even a lot of that can be managed remotely. I get to choose my percentage of work from home, options. And at a certain point, I no longer have an assumed desk in my facility. I can come into the office whenever I want and work in a hot swapping location or what have you. There are shared desks in our environment that whoever happens to be there can use. And there'll be more of those shared desks as we go forward. But, I don't have to physically be there, because clearly I can do my job literally from anywhere in the world. I worked from my cabin in the trees all summer. It was wonderful. I felt better. I slept better. I was more productive. I was more creative because I was with a bunch of trees. And so, but I definitely proved that if you have good internet, you can pretty much do this gig from anywhere.
Living the digital nomad dream.
Yes, it's quite wonderful. And I never thought I'd really want that. And I have to say, I'll be really honest, I didn't want that. I loved working. It was my dream my whole career to work at Microsoft and to work at product engineering and to work inside Microsoft Teams. Like I said earlier, it felt like being inside a sun. I loved it. I loved that. But that's not where we are today. And I really had to accept the change. Even when we go back, not everyone will go back. It won't be what it was. So if I'm going to lean into the change, if I'm going to teach others how to change, then I need to do it for myself. So I did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe one last question, if I may. I mean, there's you were talking about collaboration technologies, how you're making for better hybrid meetings and so on. But there's also evidence that people are still struggling with hybrid. It's not as easy as virtual or face to face. It seems to be of a different kind of complexity.
Yes.
We, for instance, found out 71% of people get stressed from hybrid meetings, and linking that to a quote I came across from a Dutch futurist, Gert Leonhard, he was talking about technology is exponential, humans are not. So what's your reaction to this? Is this a key element when talking hybrid, when talking about meeting engagement?
This is really, you really hit on something that underlies the whole people first strategy. You have to be bounded by the people you're working with. It's very much like when I go to teach a course. I have to meet my students where they are, right? I can't be discussing advanced automation practices and software architecture if they are, power users in Word and that's all they've ever done. And I think that we're applying that. I think we need to remember that not everyone has taken to virtual meetings the same way. Many people have come into Microsoft Teams and they've only clicked on the link to join a meeting or done a chat. That's it. They don't know about Teams. They don't know about channels. They don't know about applications, right? You really have to understand your people where they are. And I would urge anyone in large or small companies to really lean into some employee surveying to understand what the challenges have been for people before you go hybrid. You have to understand what people's difficulties have been so that you can use tools like Microsoft 365 Learning Pathways or Viva Learning to help them along with the right kinds of training at the right time. People have been pushed into the deep end and expected to swim. I find that lacks compassion and leadership. Now's our time to rectify that. We did those rapid deployments. Now we need to go back and actually support our end users in building digital literacy. And that digital literacy is what breeds confidence. And confidence is the antidote to fatigue, right? The hybrid meetings don't bother me at all because I know what to do. I don't even think about it anymore. It's so a part of our culture. Because we do have some people who went back to the office early. They got exceptions for various reasons. So we've been doing the hybrid meeting for a little bit longer than maybe other people have. But that's my confidence level with the technology and with the people I work with. So I feel like we need to meet people where they are, use the skills to use this time now to invest in their digital literacy, and try to do everything we can with the technology implementation to make it easy for them. The last thing I'll say on that is, can we all just agree that enterprise software isn't like your phone where you can just like turn it on and everybody's supposed to just figure it out? Like enterprise software has never been like that. So this idea that everything's just going to be so intuitive that we never need to train anyone, I find rather obnoxious. It's not connected to reality, at least not mine.
We're making lots of people upset.
Yet it's the holy grail.
I understand that, but look, Teams is pretty intuitive, right? I appreciate our designers and everything we do, but the policies that you set up in your company may not be, right? And so, I just feel like people need some help, and there's nothing wrong with them. People get very nervous about sharing the fact that they don't understand what's going around them. We have to make a safe space in small pods and teams and whatever we can do so that people can actually learn, because no one can learn when they're afraid to share that they don't understand everything that's happening. So we've made, some things that we've done in this business for a long time are coming home to roost. And that arrogance that, oh, my software is so good, I never have to train anyone on it, is one of those ideas that's very, 2000, it's very pre-pandemic idea. We just need to face the fact that that's not true and really lean into the health and wellness of the people so that we can build their real skills. That's going to help us going forward.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Amazing conversation so far, Karuana, and thank you so much for your lovely questions, Lieven, and were exciting questions and posting us
Yeah,
onto
those are
the
good.
onto the technology path, and definitely. So we are approaching the final 45 minutes of our live broadcast. We have still a few participants patiently watching us. I've already asked for questions. What will be the main takeaways of the conversation so far, in the sense of what will be the piece of advice for the busy manager that is struggling to meet objectives on this hectic year? In relation to technologies that can make their life on hybrid work easier, what's a piece of advice?
Well, first off, take care of yourself. Number one, if you're not taking care of yourself, you can't help your team, you can't help your company, you can't help anyone else. So if you haven't gotten some sleep and gotten hydrated, do so immediately after this broadcast. The second thing is to visit adoption.microsoft.com and join our M365 Microsoft 365 Champions program. Because even if you don't want to be a technology champion, we talk about all of these things. I have tools for you. I have information for you. I have research for you, and I have guidance. And there's a whole community of people who are going through this in our Driving Adoption Forum. So if you go to adoption.microsoft.com, do a quick search, you'll find our Microsoft 365 Champions page there where you can sign up. Join us. You're not in this alone. I don't want anybody out there to feel like they have to figure this out all by themselves, because we're right here with you. Some things we're figuring out, some things we can actually, know a bit about, and we can share our journey with you. And take what you need and leave the rest, right? But do join us on adoption@microsoft.com. And the last thing I would say is listen to your people. Ask them how they are and wait. And ask them again. And when they tell you they're fine, ask them again. Because you really need to understand the mindset of your team and your employees if you're going to continue to navigate through this ongoing difficulty. Because even when we all get back into whatever's next, that's the point. We don't all know what's next, and there's still a lot of uncertainty. So if you take care of yourself, if you join our community, and if you listen to your employees and get that feedback, you'll be in a good position to move forward.
Mm-hmm. That's an interesting resource you have here, Caruana. I'm sure Barco will have also some piece of advice from the voice of Lieven here. Lieven, what's your take on the piece of advice for the busy manager on going hybrid?
Well, I'm going to build on what was discussed today. I think the guiding principle it's about people. People come first, so I think that is a crucial one. And everything else you are doing, whether it's redesigning your workplace, whether it's adding technology, it's all an enabling element. But people come first. So, and that is to me the big takeaway from today, and that is what we should all keep in mind. Because, I mean, humans as we are, we tend to turn to technology to solve a challenge or to solve a problem, but technology on its own will never ever come with the solution. So let's keep all of that in mind. It's people plus technology.
Absolutely. And we Microsoft, we post some materials with that hashtag people first. So if you query that out on social media, you'll find a few things. Much of it from me, but more is coming. You're going to see this as a main theme all year long. So people can follow that hashtag and find out more.
Amazing. And how about you, Martin? Your golden nugget from this?
Yeah, my usual wrap up summary of all the key points that came out of it. There's a couple of really interesting expressions. Actually, there's a couple of expressions that I think we can hang our hat on. The very first point I think that you made, Caruana, is experimentation. The next key point that I heard, the idea of no meetings days and no camera days. So there's a hook for people to just hold on to that thought and see what you might do with it. I thought operationalizing self-care. So just going to the point that both yourself and Lieven made about look after your people first and the rest will follow. I think a key point, Lieven, that I took from your comments there was if you have technology without engagement, you'll end up with a really sterile environment. And I think if we take all of the points that have come up, looking at people's needs first and foremost, blending technology to support people's needs as opposed to doing it in reverse, as opposed to molding people to fit into technological boxes, then it leaves us at this juncture of hybrid. So we went from face to face with relatively minimal amount of remote. We went to almost exclusively remote. And now we're in this twilight zone. And maybe the starting point at the twilight zone is, let's try to understand our people and their needs first. When we understand that, then we can figure out the best technology to support those needs, which then means our shareholders, our customers, ourselves, everybody will get looked after equally. But we start, as you say, Karuana, just to finish with your key point, look after yourself first. That's not being selfish. That's saying to look after others, you must look after yourself first, and that empowers you to be able to look after everybody else.
Fantastic. We couldn't end in a better note, definitely. So thank you so much, the participants in this roundtable. Karuana Gatimu, thank you for being early this morning, 8:30. Listen, thank you so much for being here with us as a repeater, because you already had your episode and you still wanted to join the second episode. You're more welcome also to join the third one if you need, and I'm going to announce it in a minute, because we are going to have with us for the next episode Gary Kay. Gary Kay from Rave Agency. You probably already know him. Both of you, I'm not sure, but is going to be the guest speaker on episode 3, as we're going to have him in the 8th of April, and more or less a little bit early for our viewers here in terms of the time zone, but also not in our normal time, because Gary is joining us from the US also.
Well, thank you very much for having us both, but definitely having me. Happy to come back. A great way to start my day, and talk about all the things I care about, people and technology and experimentation. And thank you. It's been really fun.
Yeah, it's been a real pleasure.
It was really, really great. And see you soon on episode 3, hopefully with Gary Kay on the 8th of April. And Karuana and Lieven, you're both welcome to join if you like the third episode, and keep this as a conversation going. Thank you so much, everyone.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, folks.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.